Now I take the opportunity to invite the moderator first. A very warm welcome to Mr. Debasish Dash, Associate Partner and ENU Industry Leader, IBM. We have four panelists, Mr. Ajay Verma, Senior Director, Capgemini, Mr. Somenath Byabortta, Utility Director, SAP, Mr. Subrata Das, Global Utilities Business Head, Oracle, and the last panelist of the session, Mr. Muralishankar Gopalakrishnan, Vice President, Product Engineer, Fluentgrid. A very warm welcome to each one of you. And as I said to all the audience, to please make sure whatever query you have, you can also send in between the session, and we will put it to the moderator at the end of the session. And now I would request the moderator to please take it forward from here. Next 1 hour goes to you.
All right.
And have a great session.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ajay, Mr. Somenath, Mr. Subrat, Mr. Muralishankar, for your time. So I hope this is definitely going to be a very engaging session, and we would go actually the round robin on the questions. So before that, if you just actually everyone just 1 minute, if you give your introduction, that would be really great. Can we start with Mr. Ajay Verma, please?
Sure, Debasish. So my name is Ajay Verma, and I work with Capgemini. I bring close to 21 years of experience in focusing mainly on the energy and utilities. Work with some of the global customers like Sempra, BC Hydro, Duquesne, Tata Power in India, Centrica, Thames Water. So I'll try to share some of the experiences which I from some of these real life projects during the discussion, and hope we will have a good session.
Thank you, Mr. Ajay. Mr. Somenath, please.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm Somenath Byabortta. I look after the utility business from SAP. I have more than 32 years of experience in energy utilities. Over period, I worked with both global and Indian customers, and also took active participation in the smart metering journey and smart grid journey for many of the utilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Subrat, please.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, everybody. Great pleasure to connect with all of you. So I manage the utilities business for Oracle for India and the Japan region. I'm based out of Gurgaon, and this is my 30th year in the industry.
Perfect. Mr. Murli?
Hi, it's a pleasure to connect to all of you. Am I audible enough?
Yes.
Right. So yes, I've been serving this industry for the last 20 years, working for Fluentgrid, leading the engineering department for the AMI product line. And yeah, so looking forward for some exciting questions from you, Debasish.
Very nice, very nice. I think it would definitely be a very interesting session. We have all the stalwarts from the industries. So just to introduce me, I take care the energy utilities industry in IBM from global business perspective. So before this, I was leading the global energy utility COC for IBM, and I do take care the digital transformation all across the globe. Any new business, especially on the AMI and asset management practice. Okay, so with that, we'll start with Mr. Ajay. So Mr. Ajay, we know you are a technologist by profession. You are an expert in digital operation. You have worked a lot of areas in AMI space, and also transformed a lot of utilities with your thought leadership. So my question to you, given the time when actually we have got a lot of changes into the operation, into the network, into the business transformation. So if you see in India, we are a little bit behind. So in most of the utilities in India, meter data is getting used right now only for billing. So can you just throw some light, what all other areas you see meter data is going to bring value to the utility business in India?
Right, Debasish. I think you're absolutely right. You know, if you really look at in India and many places across the globe, also meter data management system is primarily used for the billing, and its main role, which has been defined, just to collect the meter reads, apply all these validation, estimation, and editing, and then persist the data, and then supply the data to the billing system as the major stakeholder, and also to the OMS system and many other ADMS system, right? But if you start going into start looking into a broader view of MDMS, right? MDMS is not just meant for the billing, but also it has the capability to collect all the other set of the data, starting from the power quality, right? The current, the voltage, the active, the reactive power, the meter events and alarms, right? And not just from the smart meter, but also it has the capability, and many of these MDMS has been built around it, right? It has the capability to collect the meter reads, starting from the smart meters to the feeder meters to RTUs to ISD. So in nutshell, what I'm trying to where I'm trying to go is basically, if you start looking into all these events coming from the meters and feeder meters, it's actually giving you a real-time information, right? You can actually take the actions ASAP. You don't have to wait for the other set of information coming and start analyzing, right? So you can start taking those information, using the information in terms of the events and alarms, and then start taking the action, which will actually going to increase the asset life of the whole AMI network or the smart grid, right? That's the one way of looking into, right? The second way of looking into is basically, it also gives you a lot of data, right, around the meter and meter reads and many other data. And if you start analyzing, it will give you a lot of very useful insights in terms of the reports, right? You can look into the load profile data. You can look into the theft data in terms of the meter is supposed to be off, but is still registering, right? You can actually look into a lot of operational report. And I'll give you one example, and which will actually bring down your operational and maintenance cost. If you look at some of the utilities in North America, and I'll give you one example, AEP, American Electric Power, which is around 15 billion revenue in terms of the revenue by 2020. They spend 2.5 billion in O&M, right? A simple truck rollout cost them $500 to start with, right? And many of these things can be actually can be benefited by using the data which is stored in the MDMS, right? So that is a difference. So in nutshell, what I'm trying to emphasize is, it's not just there is a way to improve the customer satisfaction if you start analyzing the data and give power to the customers, right? You can look into a lot of benefits from the operational side. You can look into a lot of benefits from the financial side in terms of reducing the O&M cost. You can look into a lot of benefits from the security side, right? Specifically looking into where some of these cyber attacks are there based on the data which is coming in the real time, right? And there is another area where I see we really need to move forward with the meter data management system is basically, when I get into a conversation with a lot of utilities, they come back and say, now we have the data, what to do with the data, right? It's not from the smart meter, but IoT and many other devices. Now, what to do with the data? And that is where I say data is a commodity now, in real sense, right? Where I see we really need to build the right kind of insights using the data, where MDMS has a much bigger role to play. That is one piece. And the second piece is, how do we really commercialize the data? That is another piece, which is where MDMS data is actually going to help to commercialize the data in terms of building some kind of energy management services, right? Energy as a service on the top of utilities, product and services, right? And that is where the future is. Just move away from the whole commodity, which is way to go, but also look into how do we really use the data to get more insights to improve your the whole operations, to bring down those benefit from operational and improving the customer satisfaction and so on and so forth. But also, how do we commercialize the data?
Yeah.
So I'll just stop here, Debasish, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming I'm given a view of where this whole MDMS can be used.
Absolutely. I think MDMS is just not actually for the meter data collection and pushing the data to billing. I think it has got a role to play in actually bringing the top line growth as well. So which probably most of the utilities to should look forward and monetize that data, what you rightly told. Okay, so Mr. Somnath, I'll come to you now. So what I have a view that I might be wrong, just want to understand from you all. So the standard MDMS, which was built a decade ago, so the typical business process, typical the framework architecture, if you see the standard MDMS system with a RDBMS to it, so that is probably in my sense it might be little bit obsolete. It might actually need lot of attention how to reinvent the MDMS system, given the data and given the monetization, as Ajay rightly told. What is your view actually in terms of bringing up more allied capabilities or more timely features to the existing MDMS system today?
Yeah. So that's a very good question, actually. See, I have been involved in the smart metering activities in late 90s. When I actually started implementing smart meters in London Electricity in Canada, they have actually taken the view of that point of time there are IV90, MB90 kind of data stream available from Itron, and then from that in 90s today, the meter data management has come out with a huge leap in terms of the functionality, coverage, and the architectural changes. So in this question, I believe if you look into the modern MDM system today, one of the major important issues is coming with the data versioning capability. So you have got multiple data versions coming from the meters, how to keep this data, in the proper storage and maintain the versioning. That is also very important part. And I believe, and there is some effort already been done in the area of the big data capability, which is part of the MDM system at all, intrinsically built with the MDM. And since it's coming out with a huge data, the storage optimization is also very important, and that should be part of the design of the system itself, right? And if you look into some of the futuristic solution like EV charging, vehicle to grid integration, these are some of the areas that the MDM should also adapt gradually. See, in India, we have not seen the penetration beyond the smart meter to the home area network level, where we actually integrate with the programmable thermostat or the other load limiting devices to have the DR responses purposefully done, connecting all these DR devices. So I believe the future MDM should also take care that integration with that DR devices, which is in the purview of the home area network system. Yeah. And that will actually revolutionize the process, because now we are not talking about only the meter data, but the exact consumption and controlling over that consumption from the customer point of view.
That's right. I think actually you have rightly told. See, the standard MDMS system was actually seen until today is just RDBMS, or actually a data store.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now it should be a platform where actually we should have the in-memory processing, we should have the throttling, we should have the analytics, we should have a lot of things there. But to give that efficiency and operational efficiency and the scalability, so it should be actually a platform driven rather than just a RDBMS.
Absolutely, you are right on dot. Actually, the platform capability with service options.
Yes.
And with this integrability, extensibility, data management, data to insight capability.
Correct.
That is very important.
Correct.
Because you can actually deal with a lot of data, but what kind of business insight you can draw out of this data? Yeah. Can you have leveraging some cutting edge technologies like AI, ML, or blockchain?
Yeah.
Which is inbuilt parameters within the MDM to come out with the insight capability out of the data.
Yeah.
And then definitely a proper governance and monitoring mechanism, because you are dealing with a huge data system, how to manage this data properly. So definitely, I believe we are already shifting towards a proprietary architecture to open architecture already in the MDM kind of scenario. And also, I want to mention one point, because if you look into that, smart metering is basically a part of the bigger program of smart grid initiative. So whenever smart metering is a key program under smart grid initiative, and then how to embrace the event driven architecture capability, to process event as and when they occur without any human intervention. and to meet real-time integration with some of the applications like GIS or OMS or SCADA, work management system. So these are all is to be taken care in the future MDM, from the both the functionality point of view and also from the architectural point of view. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Subrat, I am coming to you. So, my question is, so everywhere there is now DR integration. There is a demand response, requirement coming up. It plays basically a very vital role in energy efficiency as well. MDM system definitely at the center of the solution. Okay. So, how do you think MDM system plays a role in designing the demand response from both analytics and the operational perspective? Can you throw some light?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, it's a good build up to this point because we started off with what additional functionalities does the MDM bring on the table, and we talked about creating a virtual map of your entire distribution network. We talk about asset management as a practice, which is a direct beneficiary of the data that you capture on the meter data management systems. We talked about the ability of authorized users to ping smart meters. We talked about EV, which Somenath alluded to, and the pressures that it brings on the distribution network. So any MDMS today needs to have the capability to feed back into the distributed energy resource management systems, because if I look at some of the larger economies and see how smart meters and MDMs have performed there, where there has been an upsurge of let's say renewables or or consumers becoming distributors themselves, the net meter there forms the critical part of what the data is fed into the MDMS. But then the effect that it has on the grid stability is something which is a direct output from the MDMS, and the capability of the MDMS to be able to fit that data into real time into the distributed energy resource management systems is very critical from the point of view of both grid stability and grid security. Second, the ability of the DISCOM to see what's behind the meter. In India, it's at this point slightly difficult because we don't have disaggregated data of a particular consumer, but it's just a question of time because the system's already in place. So when you go behind the meter, your ability to understand his consumption patterns, his ability to understand his appliance mix, and the data that comes back into the MDM and driving analytics on top of that, you can then feed that back into your DER systems or your outage management systems, and you'll be able to, drive your entire automated metering infrastructure much better than what you can today. Now, we've already done that in Australia and other utilities in the US, where we are feeding the data from the MDMS system directly, one, onto the outage management systems, two, onto the distributed energy resource management systems, but also interfacing with operational technology systems, which typically look at grid stability and grid control and other aspects which are related to better customer support, better voltage control, and so on and so forth.
Interesting. Thanks, Mr. Subrat. That is really useful. My next question is to Mr. Murli. So, Mr. Murli, you have got a special exposure here in terms of the product development background. So, keeping that in mind, I would just like to ask you one question. So, this is related to the demand from the customer and the utility towards the MDM. With the upcoming 5G network, increasing footfall of smart meter operation, loads of data, what are the top 3 activities you think every utility CIO should have in mind?
Right. Yes, Debasish. So the first item that comes to my mind is the data security. When I say data security, it means on both ends of the spectrum. One is from a data acquisition standpoint, how do we ensure that the communication from the meters to the HES system is secure at the transport layer and at the application protocol layer. Is one level of security that has to be kept in mind when designing the communication standards, when designing the communication mechanism between the head-end system and the meters. And on the downstream side, how efficiently the authentication and authorization is made for dissipating the data from the MDMS system into the various third-party systems that could be your billing system or your outage management system or your ADMS system, or for that matter, CRM systems. So how do you enable the security in terms of authentication and authorization towards dissipating the data is another aspect of the data security. That's from the utility-facing application standpoint. And the last but not the least, as more and more data gets exposed to the consumer, how much of the data security that's offered on the consumer self-care portal is another aspect that needs to be taken care when choosing any system. When declaring a system go live, sufficient VAPD testings and sufficient hardening guidelines has to be precautions has to be taken care of. That's the first item that comes to my mind. The second is how interoperable a system is. Like today we have multiple standards which is already available. We call the IEC, driven by the IEC 61968 standards. How the systems are compatible, like is the MDMS system compliant on the upstream and on the downstream side to be able to consume from this SIM compliant data models. That's one other important facet of decision making for choosing a system. That's on the interoperability side. And of course, yes, how the HES, what are the different protocols that the HES is compliant to? Is it completely compliant to the IS 15959 standards, the part 3 specifications of the IS 15959 standards, or some of the aspects that needs to be taken care of? And finally, SLA driven approach is, I believe, is very, very important. And in terms of the time it takes to collect the data as far as the data acquisition system is concerned, and the time it takes to dissipate the data to the different systems, and in total what time it takes starting from the data availability on the meter until it goes into the billing system, or for that matter into the outage management system for real-time alerts collection for a better consumer experience, or some of those three top activities that I thought should be remembered when choosing data acquisition and data management platforms on the MDMS side.
Very, very, very apt actually. I think this is the burning need in terms of, especially in India, where actually the network performance is not that great, and where we have a massive mandate to bring up the smart meter penetration. I think we need to work on the infrastructure part, first, how to really get the data, what actually we are thinking of, and how to have a consistent, without any gap, how we get it. Okay, so that is probably the first thing what needs to be designed before we move on actually the smart meter implementation. Okay, so with that, let me come to Mr. Ajay once again. So Mr. Ajay, in related to the meter data acquisition, while I was working with one of the top private company in India, utility company, I see even they have got a problem with the limited infrastructure for the current data acquisition. Okay, and I hope every utility might be having the same performance issue. So they struggle at least to for the acquisition of the data, forget actually the publishing and other things. How the utility should design the data acquisition system now, given considering actually the lot of smart meter implementation and lot of customer demand.
Right. So I think it's a very valid question, Debasish, right? So if you look at this whole AMI or smart grid transformations, we are talking about huge amount of data, right? the terabytes of the data. And MDMS is the system of record for all these data. And at the end of the day, it's supposed to process and analyze these huge amount of data, and also should be capable to scale up, right? And when I get into a conversation with many of these customers, they actually come back and say, hey, I really want you to focus on the core capabilities. And again, this whole non-functional requirements, whether it's a scalability or agility, the flexibility, let's think about how do we really accomplish those non-functional requirements. So the idea is basically, let's focus on the core capabilities, right? And how do we really do that? And we all know that the whole cloud platform is a way to go, right? The cloud platform is can scale up, can give you everything in terms of the whole meet all those non-functional requirement in terms of the scalability, the agility, the speed, the innovations, and the security, right? If it's so it has been proven, right? But still, Debasish, I see a lot of utilities across the globe where they still very laid back in terms of not very comfortable sharing the data outside the premise, right? And that is where we need to come in as an implementer. And I have done this work for many of these utilities to really educate them, saying that this is where your data classification come into the picture, right? Just think that some of this data is not confidential, right? It's just a orphan data. Nobody can actually figure it out. What does it really mean, right? And that is where if you start combining with other set of the data, then it will give you a real meaning of who is this customer, how is spending, right? But a meter ID will not give you anything, right? So that is where we need to educate the customer very really in the sense is, the data classification has to play an important role in terms of what data can be stored in MDMS outside the premise in the cloud, and what data can be stored within the premise, right? And there is a good combination of that in terms of some of the best practices and lessons learned, right? So that is one piece, Debasish. The second piece, what I would say is, if you look at some of these MDMS vendors across the globe, there is some of the, I'll name some of them, is Energy Works. There is a Microfit Mine also, who are actually going to revolutionize the whole this transformation in terms of really giving the MDMS in the cloud as a software as a service, right? Let's focus on the core capabilities. Let's not worry about the non-functional requirement, and your platform will give you everything in terms of the scalability, the agility, the drive the innovations, and also the standardization, right? Standardization is also a much important role we need to keep in mind when we are talking about standards. Murli did talk about some of these standards like IC 61968 and 61970, and there are a lot of working groups under the whole IC, which is working group 14 and 17. I'm personally part of some of these working groups, but the idea is basically to drive the standardization to support the interoperability. We don't want to get a lot of cloud issues I see when I get into a conversation. It's fine to get the speed and agility, but we want also the standards. We don't want to get locked into one specific cloud vendor, right? Or one specific MDMS, right? So where I'm trying to go is basically, some of these, MDMS vendor, which is Energy Works and these companies, just look at what they are doing in terms of the energy as a service or software as a service. And also we need to educate the customer in terms of, don't worry about the security. Let's look into the data classification to drive and educate them.
No, I think that is a very valid point. Only thing actually what I want to highlight here, see, as you rightly told, every utility must be in the need of MDM, the existing products, because that gives the business process, and over the years it has been matured to bring up the operational standpoint. But at the same time, like Energy Works or the Greenbird, so the kind of, there should be a platform. I mean, I go back to actually my original perception. I think it should be, as you rightly told, it should be a platform centric approach. It should actually have a retrofit model to the existing MDM system with the cloud capability, so that you actually push the data as it comes. Keep just the 24 hours data or something like that, whatever minimum need, but you push the data continuously to the platform with a cloud replicator, and do all your analytics, monitoring, everything actually on the cloud. and just keep actually the standard things, probably to the billing or something like that. I mean, just keep the core business process in the MDM so that it would be lightweight, and at the same time you manage the massive metadata in parallel processing at the cloud.
Right, right, right. And also, we should not forget about the total cost of ownership, right? When you're
Yes,
moving
yes.
into the cloud, just look at the total cost of ownership. It actually lowers down,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's also one of the important
Correct,
aspects
correct.
to look into
Absolutely,
these kind of
absolutely.
platforms.
So that you are not in vendor lock-in, you are
Right.
actually in playing in a cloud, the hybrid cloud model, and
Right.
have the MDM, but give a power to your data.
Right.
All right, very nice. So, Mr. Somnath, I have a question for you. This is related to the burning challenges in India and Asia. So that is the energy theft. Okay. So we see for the distribution, especially distribution customers, there is a lot of energy theft. We keep on hearing that through the connectivity model, through the the smart meter implementation, you can actually reduce the energy theft to a large extent. Okay, so do you have any exposure or any light on this? What you would like to mention?
Yeah, Devashish, that's really a very pertinent question, especially in India. If you have reading with AT&C figure up till 35% level across the nation, and most of this is from the commercial losses, and a major constituent of the commercial losses is the energy theft and pilferage. This is definitely a burning issue for our country like that. But I can tell you that though all the model meters have come up with the theft, tamper, and revenue protection event configured in it, and whenever it is detected, it is come to the MDM solution, right? Now, if properly implemented, the system should have the ability to analyze meter tampering event and should draw inference based on usage and the historical trends of the usage of the profiles of the identified customers or group of customers, and to identify the potential energy diversion situation and produce some kind of daily reports or monthly reports, or can build a service order request to send the investigation to be performed to validate that claim. Apart from there, I believe there are certain tools and applications available in the market which can take the historical usage trend data as well as the current usage data available from the MDM solution and can analyze and identify potential revenue protection incidents, and that again can be validated by sending the inspection team. But other aspects which is very much open in the MDM kind of framework is to perform energy accounting. So assessing the injection point energy with the drawal and consumption energy available from the smart meter, and to analyze the commercial losses to identify theft and pilferage. So this is also one of the way to look into how can I manage the theft and revenue protection events. So in other words, I must say that with proper analysis, monitoring, and governance mechanism, meter data along with the tamper events have all the capability and provide lot of insights to act accordingly and curb the energy theft related problem in India. Yeah.
Great. All right. So, Mr. Subrat, I'll just actually come to you for the question of the hour. So there is a lot of debates. It's not debate actually. We have seen the implementation in the advanced countries. So the advanced analytics is just not actually a solution, but it is also helping to drive the revenue generation and also to drive the customer satisfaction in advanced countries. Okay. So in India, if we have to bring up advanced analytics and if utilities need to think about advanced analytics from the MDM, what are the top 2 or 3 areas they should be looking into? Hello, Mr. Subrat.
I think Subrata is in mute.
Yeah, you are
He's
in
on
mute.
mute, yeah.
Yes,
Subrata, you are in mute.
I had an issue with you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So I think the question was around the possibility of analytics with the meter data management system, because there was an outage in my Wi-Fi and I couldn't get the shape to the question. But I understand looking at how you rounded up the question as to what the question possibly could be. And first and foremost, question, I think the first direct beneficiary is the load prediction on the household or the institution or the commercial entity, both at the entity level, at the circuit level, and the distribution level. Second beneficiary is obviously your ability to drive a much deeper customer engagement, whether it's through proactive notifications for high consumption or outage status, so on and so forth. And this assumes a very big significance because as and when we move into opening up the retail sector, the ability to attract, onboard, and retain customers will largely depend on how deeper your customer engagement policies are. And your customer engagement is based on data, and that data comes from your MDMS system. The third direct beneficiary is, again, on the operational and cost side of things, which is on the predictive maintenance, whether it's your distribution assets, whether it's the analytics on your circuit quality, and lots of other areas. But also what we need to understand, and some of the others distinguished speakers also alluded to during their responses, is the ability to inculcate machine language, learning, and big data into some of the data that you'll be generating. On an average, most of the discoms are looking at somewhere between 700 to about 1,000 times increase in the data. Now, please understand meter readings are time series data. And while there are machine learning algorithms, being able to drive machine learning algorithms for a particular set of meters or an individual meters requires a huge amount of training and rigor into building that algorithm. Some of that, when it comes out of the box, it brings in a lot of value to the discom. So at our organization, we are able to bring not only the utility analytics, which sits on our MDMS systems, but also we have the capability of taking inputs, just like what we are doing at some of the larger utilities across the world, from other MDMS systems and drive analytics on top of that. So again, customer level forecasts, asset management, load prediction are some of the areas. Obviously, you can build machine learning algorithms around power theft, around meter detection, around predictive asset management, all of that. But yes, analytics is the biggest thing, and that's where I think the CIO or the custodian of a particular discom's IT landscape needs to make a lot of focus in. What I don't see at this point in time is a customer having a data strategy or an analytics strategy, because he's just going to sit on a pile load of data in just about 6 months into the implementation and not know what to do with it. Because there are several value proposition that comes up with the data that's already sitting with you. The ability for you to drive analytics out of the data, the ability to drive information lifecycle management, your ability to drive better service order management with the data that's sitting with you are some of the, just a few areas where these people could possibly benefit. But that's not something which is coming out in the model RFPs and the PPP contracts that we are seeing, where the focus is largely on the meter and less on the system. I think as a country, we need to flip it upside down to ensure that we get continuum in the entire return of investment that the country is making in rolling out 250 smart meter meters. Thanks.
Very, very nice, very nice. And I see actually, there are a lot of things happening in the advanced world. We are catching up. I'm sure actually we have got the best of CIO minds in our utility organizations, but it is just actually a matter of the time. So in continuation to that, I would like to bring up, I have a big fan of the vision from IntelliSmart. How they are thinking actually the next phase of the world in terms of AMI footprint in India. So I know there is a vision for one MDM. There is a vision for replicating from system to central. So definitely it gives a lot of standardization across India. But at the same time, the operation becomes very critical. The design becomes very complex. So that's all actually are there. So, Mr. Murli, given your product development background and as you have seen a lot of, architecture and the data crunching, what is your view whether it is possible to have the kind of one MDM at the national level, given actually the constraint of the network and India kind of scenario? What is your view?
The initiative that has been taken is definitely a wonderful initiative. But the key aspect that needs to be remembered is that each of the utilities in India are at different maturity levels, and the kind of functionality that is needed by each utility would be different. Number one, and number two is the integration challenges, like on the downstream, especially on the downstream side, when you integrate with the billing system. Some of those utilities have a very legacy system. Some expect the billing parameters to be sent as some kind of flat files. So this is varied kinds of integration mechanism would be a challenge that needs to be thought about when thinking of or when doing a one MDM solution across the country. That is my view, Debasish.
Yeah. I think that is true. I mean, different processes, infrastructure issue, network issue, given that into consideration, it is a mammoth job. But what actually gives the sign at the end of the day, if we make it happen in one state, then the rest of the state would actually follow that practice. Okay, definitely.
Just one point from me on this. And
yeah.
I know I'm on somebody else's time, but I'll try and
no problem.
30 yes. seconds. Is what IntelliSmart is trying to do in India is not something which has been attempted before or is running somewhere else.
Yeah.
If you look at what's happening with IntelliHub in Australia or
yes.
in UK or some of the states in the US, it's already been
Mr. Subrata, you are breaking.
Back onto IntelliSmart is these. Yeah, what puts the owners back into IntelliSmart is the ability to drive that scale. This kind of scale in India may not be available with other economies.
Exactly.
However, the issue with IntelliSmart is about being able to retain strategic control and drive the outcomes. And that essentially depends on what system integrator they choose, what MDMS platform or billing platform or prepaid platform they choose, and the ability of the system integrator or put all of these together, along with the head system.
Okay, so Mr. Subrata, you are breaking, but we got your point. It's at scale operation. I think Intelligrid needs to have more practice on the operational side, operational control and design control and all those things. I think it is definitely a good initiative, but there is a way to go here. So good luck to IntelliSmart and the vision. We'll see the next done probably in the MI space down the line couple of years. So with that, I have my last question. 1 minute, everyone. I want to see the answer from all of you. If given the chance to you to build the next generation MDMS system, what is your wish list? Everyone, 1 minute, starting with Mr. Ajay.
Ajay, you're on mute.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So my wish list, I would say again two major piece. We did talk about this. One is more on the data standards, right? Data standards, interface standards. We really need to move away from the whole lock-in of a vendor to support interoperability. That is where I see a lot of MDMS vendors need to work with some of these working bodies like IEC and ISGF just to make sure that there is a standardization around this. We don't want to get into a complicated operation after implementation of a smart meter and smart grid. That is one. Second piece is, and again, we did touch about this, is more in terms of how do we really run this advanced analytics, really getting the insights from the data. How do we monetize the data, create a new source of the revenue for the utilities? And that is where I think Somenath did talk about this advanced analytics and then big data. But the idea is basically how do we really create the configurable analytics where I can configure my reports, the analytics in a way that that gives me a better insights and help
Thanks,
me to
Ajay.
monetize the data.
Thanks, Ajay. Time of, sorry. Somnath sir, 1 minute.
Yeah, I think Ajay has touched upon the point. But in my view, the next generation MDM will be treated as a platform solution rather than a point application acting a bridge between the meter HES and the utility CIS system. So I am really interested, rather than feature and functionality enhancement, how it evolves, in the architecture as well as from the deployment point of view. Some of the platform capability we have already, some of the speakers had already been touched upon, the extensibility, the integrability, and all the things. But I just want to mention one point here. I am sure over the period, meter asset provider as well as the meter reading will be coming out as a separate marketplace, not from the discoms, right?
Yes.
And then the capability will emerge as an independent marketplace in the electricity value chain.
Yeah.
So it should emerge. The MDM system should emerge as a service model.
That's right.
So meter reading is a service which can be consumed by many of the players, like electricity distributors, electricity retailers, traders, wholesalers, settlement agencies, and so on and so forth. Perfect. So this kind of service capability should be inbuilt, in the future MDM system. So
thank you, Somnath sir. Subrata sir, 1 minute, please.
Yeah, I think the other speakers have already spoken about what they want in the MDMS system, and I'm a little comfortable here because at Oracle we are future-proof. That's where I would want to position ourselves, because you look at the level of autonomy that we bring onto how we manage the data, the amount of data security and application level security, and conjunction with quality standards that we maintain. And today we want to know how many such platforms or systems, as they call it, are there which are tested for a concurrency of 25 million smart meters, which we typically do. The second point, wherein I want to draw a little more on what Somnath said, which is around the ability to consume the services. It also puts the pressure back on the vendor that his MDM should be able to be rendered as a microservice.
Yes.
Now we need to understand how many such MDMs in the market, besides the company that I represent, today have those services which are available as a microservice. And the last point, I mean, we've been talking about analytics, we've been talking about a lot of discoms trying to build a strategy around having a separate data warehouse. The future of the MDMS lies in being able to drive real-time analytics out of an online transaction processing platform.
Sir, I'm sorry to say the time of, sir. I'm so sorry to say, we got your point. I think very valid 3 points. So sorry for cutting you. Murali sir, for 1 minute.
No worries.
Right, sir. So I think we have been talking about interoperabilities. We have been talking about standardizations. Wonderful. One key aspect that we are working towards, and the industry should look forward to, is what are those features of MDMS that would enhance the customer delight. And the key function that comes or that we are working towards or putting our thoughts behind it is on doing a disaggregation function on the consumption data that is being gathered as a part of the MDMS system, which would enable better decision making by the consumers for reduced energy consumption and eventually reduced bills for them. That's something that I think as an industry we should look forward to, and we are working hard towards that.
Okay, so Mr. Ajay, Mr. Somnath, Mr. Subrata, Mr. Muralishankar, so it has been great pleasure discussing with you. Had not been there actually time constraint, I would like to discuss hours and hours. So we will not get this platform, but good that at least we discussed 1 hour and you gave your thoughtful replies. So I hope it helps actually the utility customers and who all are actually attending this show. Great work. Thank you so much. Back to moderator, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request the audience to please put your question across to the panelists. And I would request the moderator to please check your chat box.
Okay, so the
questions will be there.
Yeah, the first question is obesity of data, suitable software for analysis of the data, implementation of time zone based tariff, educating the domestic customers for effective usage of electric power. Okay, I think this is more actually what is required from the MDMS system. I think we have discussed these things. Yeah, so suitable software analysis, data analysis, time zone based tariff, educating domestic customers. This all actually how to use the peak of time. So I think these are the critical requirement what you do achieve from the meter data. Yes. Okay, so panelists, so there is a question: if any generation change 2G to 3G, 3G to 4G, 4G to 5G, is it increases in data speed and additional signal strength also? Can anyone give reply?
Yeah, definitely. Just a few points from my side. 5G will come out with a superior signal penetration, and that's why many of the architecture leveraging 5G can actually take care the coverage beyond the boundary of the smart meter to connect the home area network. Because of the superior coverage. So definitely with 5G we are expecting that we have get better penetration of the network. Yes.
And just add to that, Debasish, what Somenath said, there is another, what we have seen some of the use case specifically around the command control and the edge computing, where we have seen a lot of limitation because of the bandwidth and latency, right? And with this whole upcoming 5G network, I think it's a huge, it will give you a huge opportunity to really build those use cases and move towards those whole command control, supporting the DR side of the fence,
Yes.
and also the whole edge computing.
Also backhaul networking
Right.
design. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, I don't see any more question. Okay, I have got a question. How long the data will be retained in the meter even after transmitting to the data center? Any view from anyone?
I have seen personally, the retention of 3 years data, and then after that it goes into an archive, right? But again, it depends upon the whole requirement coming from the utilities. But I think 3 years to 5 years is a good time frame, right?
Okay, so there's a question for Subrata. Concept of net metering is included in the present smart meters. Is it there? I mean, this is the question probably. So this is for Subrata. Concept of net metering, is it included in the present smart meters?
Yes, of course. And if you look at the IntelliSmart RFP, which is there, it very clearly defines the net meters, the various parameters that these net meters are supposed to capture. So net meters are going to be an integral part of the entire rollout strategy. Yes.
Yeah, and I just recollect. I think there should be a massive disruptions into the distribution segment when the penetration of rooftops should be enormous.
Exactly, and rooftop solar is going to be the larger component of the BER. And that's what we've seen in other geographies as well. India shouldn't be too far behind in that as well.
All right. If there is no more question, we can conclude the session. Again, thank you so much for your time. Back to
I'm done with the question, sir.
Sorry, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. We're done with the questions.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
everybody.
Thank you.